what do you understand by the word tides? Some people understand the word tide दाग भगाने के लिए एक आपका सरफेक्शल जैसे आता है वैसे ही है टाइड भी, बट हम उस टाइड की बात नहीं कर रहे हैं. वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द टाइड्स व्हिच यूज्ड टू कम इन द ओशियंस. सो लेट्स डिस्कस अबाउट द टाइड. सो टाइड इज नथिंग बट अ पीरियडिक राइज एंड फॉल इन द सी लेवल. ठीक है ना. What is happening in tides? Tide is nothing but it is a periodic rise and fall in the sea level. Periodic rise and fall in the sea level means after a definite interval of time. After a definite interval of time, periodic rise and fall means after a definite interval of time, sea level become high. After a definite interval of time, sea level become low. So then I will call it periodic, right? So a periodic rise or fall of the sea level, it can be once or twice a day, mainly due to why it used to happen? Attraction by sun and moon, and not majorly by sun, it is majorly by moon. The attraction for the formation of tide is majorly by moon, not by sun, because the gravitational force of attraction over the earth can be felt from the moon, not from the sun majorly. Even if I will compare the size of the sun and moon, then size of the sun is quite huge in comparison to the moon, but even then the gravitational force of attraction felt over the earth is more by the moon because of the distance factor. Because sun is far away from the earth, that's why it doesn't give much influence. It doesn't give much influence over the gravitational force of attraction. So it is just a periodic rise which is called as tides, and majorly because of the sun and moon. Majorly because of the sun and the moon. Next thing is, the study of tide is really very complicated, because as in the definition you are seeing, the sea level rise once or twice a day. So even we can't predict definitely it will happen once a day or twice a day or thrice a day or 4 times a day. So there are multiple factors which get involved into it, and these multiple factors must have to be included in the study for properly defining the formation of tides. तो वोल्केनो क्या है? वोल्केनो कुछ नहीं है, एक वेंट है. ठीक है ना. अर्थ क्रस्ट के अंदर एक वेंट है, एक होल है. ठीक है. जो क्या करेगा भैया, लावा को अलाउ करेगा कि लावा जो है, हॉट लावा जो है वो बाहर आ जाए, या लावा के साथ साथ में गैसेस हैं, रॉक्स हैं, वोल्केनिक ऐश है, स्टीम है फ्रॉम द मैग्मा चैम्बर. वो क्या है, जो भी अंडरनेथ ऑब्जेक्ट्स हैं, मटेरियल है, पायरोक्लास्टिक सब्सटेंसेस हैं, मैग्मा है, लावा है, ऐश है, गैसेस हैं, इट विल प्रोवाइड ए पासेज. ठीक है ना. ये क्या करेगा, एक पास दे देगा और उसी पास से सब कुछ जो है वो बाहर आ जाएगा. जब ये एक्टिविटी चल रही होती है तो उसको क्या बोलते हैं हम, एक्टिव. अगर इरप्शन चल रहा है रेगुलरली, रेगुलरली का मतलब ऐसा नहीं कि रोज की रोज निकले, ऐसा भी हो सकता है 10 दिन 20 दिन महीना साल के बाद में भी निकलता रहेगा लावा, तो मैं उसको क्या बोलूंगा, एक्टिव लावा, एक्टिव वोल्केनो. दूसरा, अगर लावा बाहर निकलना बंद हो गया है तो मैं उसको क्या बोलूंगा, उसको मैं बोलूंगा डोरमेंट और इनएक्टिव वोल्केनो. डोरमेंट और इनएक्टिव, गरम रखा करो भैया. उसको मैं क्या बोलूंगा, डोरमेंट और इनएक्टिव वोल्केनो. राइट. कितने टाइम के बाद में, हंड्रेड्स ऑफ इयर्स के बाद में मैं देखूंगा कि लावा इरप्ट हो भी रहा है या नहीं. देन आफ्टर आई विल गिव द स्टेटस ऑफ इनएक्टिव. ऐसा नहीं कि 2 दिन हो गए लावा नहीं आ रहा, चलो इसको इनएक्टिव बोल देते हैं. नो, बर्दाश्त नहीं होगा उसको, वो फिर से इरप्ट होना शुरू हो जाएगा. तो आफ्टर लॉन्गर टाइम अगर लावा इरप्शन नहीं होता है, देन वी विल कॉल इट इनएक्टिव लावा, राइट और नॉट। अब बात आती है कॉजेज क्या है वोल्केनिक इरप्शन के, क्या कारण है, क्यों वोल्केनिज्म आता है, क्यों इरप्शन होता है, ठीक है ना। देखो वोल्केनिक इरप्शन जो है वो किस प्लेस पे कहाँ पे टेक प्लेस होता है ज्यादा, इन द एरियाज विद वाइब्रेशन एक्टिविटीज और वीक जोन जहाँ, ठीक है, ऐसा एरिया जहाँ वाइब्रेशन एक्टिविटीज ज्यादा होती हैं या जो वीक जोन होता है। भाई आप जैसे अर्थ के दो प्लेट के बारे में हम बात कर रहे थे, ये दो प्लेट हैं एक दूसरे की तरफ मूव कर रही हैं, सबडक्शन होगा या जो भी एक्टिविटी है एक दूसरे से इंटरेक्ट करेगी। जब इंटरेक्ट करेंगी एक दूसरे से तो उस टाइम पे क्या होगा, इंटरेक्शन के टाइम पे हम देखेंगे कि जहां पे भी वीकनेस होगी प्लेट के अंदर, ठीक है ना, जहां पे भी प्लेट में वीकनेस होगी वहां से जो आपका चैम्बर में से जो मैग्मा निकलना था वो उसको वीकनेस को ऑब्वियसली फायदा उठाएगा, उसको ब्रेक डाउन करने की कोशिश करेगा और जैसे ही उसकी ब्रेकिंग होगी तो लावा उससे प्रीडोमिनेंटली बाहर निकल जाएगा, ठीक है ना। लावा उससे क्या होगा, प्रीडोमिनेंटली बाहर निकल जाएगा। तो वोल्केनिक इरप्शन प्रीडोमिनेंटली अकर इन द एरियाज ऑफ वाइब्रेशन एक्टिविटीज और वीक जोन।
So parliament can do what? The parliament can provide for some additional grounds. Like if you look at the Representation of People's Act, the Representation of People's Act, again, Representation of People's Act, which means it is a law of the parliament. The Representation of People's Act lays down these 8 grounds. If you are following under this particular 8 grounds, you are disqualified from being a member of parliament. Like if you are found guilty of some kind of corrupt election practices or some other corrupt practices during the elections, if that is the case, you will be disqualified. If you have been convicted of an criminal offense which results in your imprisonment for 2 or more years, in that case, अगर आपने कोई भी ऐसा एक्ट किया है जो कि एक क्रिमिनल ऑफेंस है, दैट इज पनिशेबल अंडर द इंडियन पीनल कोड, क्रिमिनल ऑफेंस माना जाता है, फॉर विच यू आर लायबल टू सर्व अ सेंटेंस ऑफ 2 years और मोर, ठीक है, यानी आपको 2 साल या उससे ज्यादा की सजा हो जाती है, यू आर डिस्क्वालिफाइड फ्रॉम बीइंग अ मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट. He must not have failed to lodge account of his election expenses within a time. If you fail to do this, आपने इलेक्शन कमीशन को ये नहीं बताया है what your election expenditure is, you will be disqualified. He must not have interest in any government contract or service. You will not be any kind of government contract or service, you cannot be involved there. He must not be a director or managing agent who holds any office of profit in a corporation in which the government has at least 25% of share. So if you are a managing director or a director in any such corporation wherein the government owns 25% of share, you will be disqualified. He must not have been dismissed from government service on corruption or disloyalty of the state. So if you are proved to be corrupt or if you are disloyal to the state, it has been proved, and you have been dismissed from any government service on this ground, then in that case also, you can be disqualified. He must not have been convicted of promoting enmity between different groups or for the offense of bribery, enmity, hate speeches or bribery, you will know, in that case also you will be disqualified. He must not have been punished for preaching or practicing social crimes such as untouchability, dowry, sati. If you are guilty of this, you will again be disqualified from being a member of the house. Clear? So this is the case. In fact, if you remember, I have talked about such things like when I was discussing article 29, I did discuss about this very idea, enmity between different groups, how there was an appeal and how an individual was held guilty and was disqualified on the ground that he was using a trident, त्रिशूल. उन्होंने अपना एक फ्लैग यूज करना शुरू किया था जिसमें त्रिशूल और सैफरन कलर था, and then he was also promoting defense of Hindi language against the Punjabi language which was spoken in Punjab, and how it, for this reason he was found guilty, and how it was overturned by the Supreme Court. I have already discussed that. So these can be some additional grounds for disqualification, which has been mentioned under Representation of People's Act. Attitudes are not all the times predicting your behavior. Yes, attitudes are a major factor, or if I can predict your attitude, I can definitely, not certainly, but not with certainty, but more accurately, I can predict your behavior as well. However, there is only 80% or 0.83 correlation that exists between attitude and behavior. And that is the reason why we have discussed that in certain cases, attitudes are not the predictor of behavior. And what are those cases, and why is that the case, we have already discussed. So now we come to, now what are the topics that are left? So we are going to discuss moral and political attitudes. So that is something that we need to take into account, moral and political attitudes. After moral and political attitudes, we have to discuss the theories of attitude change, in which we have to take up our discussion on social influence and persuasion. So these are the topics that are left here. Let us start with our discussion on moral attitudes. So what are moral attitudes? What are moral attitudes? Let us try and understand what are moral attitudes. See, attitudes that we hold can be of multiple types. Attitudes that we hold, these attitudes can be of multiple types. Now, these attitudes can be of multiple types. What we need to understand is that these attitudes that are there, these attitudes that we hold, not all attitudes are moral attitudes. Not all attitudes that we hold are moral attitudes. However, if this circle represents the attitudes that I hold, if the circle represents the attitudes that I hold, some of the attitudes that I hold, these attitudes have a morality component.
So when we say dowry, that is, most of the time, it's not always to be construed as, now India is an exception of everything. You all must be thinking that it's the bride which gives dowry to the groom. But there are some traditions in Meghalaya, they follow matrilineal society, right? So they do give, that is, the grooms do give bride to the dowry to the bride side. But as it is the norm, most of the time it is the brides that give dowry to the groom. And in that case, in both the cases, it's a social menace. Because the element of dowry, as we have seen also in the kind of arsh marriages that was written in the form of sutra literatures, giving up of material wealth was considered. Here, the material wealth, please understand this concept, that how dowry genesis have been formed. The idea of giving material wealth to your daughter when she is married off to someone else's home. The idea, the social practice, and the thought behind that idea is that the girl or the bride should be able to afford ease in her life. Not just girl, but the couple as in such. They should have some ease in their married life. And a very important aspect on which we will discuss the judgments of Supreme Court very soon, and that is why I want you to pay a bit more attention. Dowry, according to some scriptures, Indian scriptures, was also seen as a personal material wealth of the girl or of that woman who is being married. And this is closely related to another menace, which was a menace which is no more existing in Indian society, that is the sati system. That is not written here, but we are discussing it in detail when we are discussing dowry. We'll explain you how the system works.
The chemical general formula is C6. The chemical general formula is C6H12O5. Clearly visible that it does not satisfy the chemical general formula to be carbohydrate, but it is still a carbohydrate because on hydrolysis it provides either aldehyde or ketone group. Second statement is like this: it will give energy to human body and can be edible by most of the animals. Hence we can say that these are the two exceptions in case of carbohydrate. First one is rhamnose and second one is acetic acid. There are two exceptions, rhamnose and acetic acid. Whatever you are consuming contains few elements or few amount of carbohydrates, you can say. Either you are consuming chapati or you are consuming boiled rice, they contains carbohydrates in majority. Hence, the quantity you are consuming for carbohydrate is more as compared to protective element. There is a one statement in English language known as an apple a day takes doctor away. Takes doctor away means apple is nothing but just protecting your body from various kind of diseases and disorders. While on the other hand, carbohydrate like chapati and rice are not going to protect you from any kind of disease or disorder. Mind my words. They are not going to protect you from any kind of disease or disorder. While on the other hand, you are consuming chapati or rice, or you can say carbohydrate in higher quantity as compared to apple. You are not going to consume, you are not consuming 5 kg of apple in a day. Huh? या करता है कोई ऐसा? While on the other hand, you can consume at least 250 grams of rice, or you can say 250 grams of wheat per day. That is higher quantity, na? Hence, it proves कि जो आपका बॉडी है, I told you earlier कि 80 to 85% is made up of simply hydrocarbons.
See the definition: in order to achieve the high accuracy, right, in placing the satellites into the orbits, a combination of accuracy, efficiency, power, and immaculate planning is required. And for that, the ISRO's launch vehicle program has been launched, which have numerous centers, as I said, no, VSSC or Vikram Sarabhai Space Center, then Satish Dhawan Space Centers, employing more than 5,000 people. Here, if you see the assembly, this is nothing but the assembly. As far as the launch vehicle is concerned, these are the clampers, right? And here, this is the actual vehicle, what you can see here in the diagram, right? Once the countdown starts and this gets over, then this clamps opens, and then with the ignition and the fire, this particular vehicle takes off. Now, when I say, as far as the institutions involved in this are concerned, then here you can very clearly see the institution. The most important is nothing but the Vikram Sarabhai Space Center, or VSSC, right? Again, this is located in Trivandrum or Thiruvananthapuram in Kerala, right? Where this particular center is responsible for designing and developing the launch vehicles in India, right? However, the coordination is provided by, as I've told you, none other than ISRO, or Indian Space Research Organization. Then LPSC, when we talk about Liquid Propulsion Center, then it is located at two places. One is Valaimala and the other is Mahendragiri, right? You can see these places, and Mahendragiri in Tamil Nadu, which actually develops the fuel stages. As I've told you, the launch vehicle have the various fuel stages, solid, liquid, cryo, and all those things. So especially the liquid and the cryo part is developed at the LPSC, or what we can say Liquid Propulsion System Center, along with the IPSC, that is ISRO Propulsion Complex, right? Then when we talk about the SDSC, that is nothing but the Satish Dhawan Space Center, then Satish Dhawan Space Center is further nothing but the spaceport for India, or what we can say is the launch station for India, right? So when we talk about SPSC or SDSC, you can say, not SPSC, Satish Dhawan Space Center, then as I've told you, located in Sriharikota. Sriharikota is a place which is located off the coast of Andhra or Andhra Pradesh, from where we have the launch station or launch pad. This is nothing but the picture depicting the launch pad, right? This is the one which is located as Satish Dhawan Space Center, right? Similarly, we have one more that is nothing but located in Balasore. There is a place called Balasore or Chandipur in Odisha, and Balasore is the one, right, which is another launch station for India. But please remember, Balasore is not used for launching the satellites or the launch vehicles, right? Balasore is rather used for defense purpose, and from here we do the missile testing and all those things. So basically you can say this is nothing but for the defense related purpose.